All right, welcome back to the Vanport Bowling News. I guess we'll call this a podcast type things. I'm Jim Ferretti, the publisher of the Vanport Bowling News, and with me now is the proprietor at Highland Bowl, Scott Yarrow. Scott, did I say that right?
Good enough. You
All
got it.
right, very good. Well, Scott, Highland Bowl is in Corvallis, and this summer you hosted a pretty big tournament for the bowler proprietors or for the USBC, correct?
Yeah, we hosted the Super Bowl consolation tournament. So yeah, bowlers from state of Oregon into Washington, kind of all over the Northwest.
Okay, and this was interesting and actually unique because you have string pins at Highland Bowl.
Yeah, we just had them installed. They started installation beginning of June, kind of finished up right at the beginning of July, and we had them in obviously about a month before that tournament started, which was our kind of game plan is to get the bugs or issues if there were any out and have them ready for the bowlers when they got coming in for the tournament.
Well, I want to start with that tournament. What was the reaction of the bowlers when you said, "Hey, we've got this new thing that we're doing here at Highland Bowl"?
Um, I think kind of mixed reviews to start with. I actually did quite a few tours for bowlers that kind of got here early that were interested in it. I know from the proprietor standpoint, it's something I've been interested in for a year and a half or 2 years before. So I think a lot of people are curious, didn't know quite what to think. Some negative, mostly the negative was before they bowled on it. I had, I think, 5 or 6 teams that had already paid their entries and stuff that actually decided they weren't going to come and bowl. So that's their choice and up to them. But yeah, based on what I would view as kind of perceived notions on what string pin bowling was going to be, having not actually bowled on it. So once people actually bowled on it, I think in general the consensus was, oh, that wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be, and most of them just kind of it's bowling, and that was my own personal experience. This is fairly new to all of us. The first time I bowled on it, it took me about 3, 4 frames, and then after that, I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just bowling. Okay, I left a 4 pin. I need to adjust to that, and you kind of go from there. So I'd say in general, from the tournament bowlers, I would say kind of a neutral feedback, not positive or negative. I know for my own league bowlers, it's been really positive. They've enjoyed the changes and they enjoy the reliability of the machines and being able to get out of here on time and reduce the breakdowns.
Well, that's good to hear. And I've watched some of the videos you've posted online, or people have posted online regarding the string pins there at Highland Bowl. And to me, as an upper average bowler, it doesn't look a whole lot different from the videos.
Yeah, that's been my personal experience, and I think that's been the experience from just watching at the counter as you see stuff. It's pretty much bowling. I mean, you're going to have an occasional something weird happen, a string trip or a messenger that you thought should have got there that didn't. But I've been around bowling a long time. You've always had odd things. I can think of outer ranges that came so far forward that the sweep comes down behind them, or pins that go down and stand back up. I mean, there's always been odd things, even with freestanding bowling. So for me, it's just part of the game, and I think when you weigh the benefits, if it doesn't change the game of bowling that much, and you have all the added benefits of the reliability of the machines and even the issues with deadwood and ball returns and all those stuff, it really cleans up some of the issues. We're probably having 1/20th the number of stops that we had last year so far this year. It's just we go back there maybe 2 or 3 times a day. When we're open 14 hours or whatever, that's pretty good, I think, for the number of stops.
Yeah, when it comes to strange leaves, people maybe need to go to Reno and bowl at the National Bowling Stadium a time or
Yeah,
two.
and that's honestly what we kind of compared it to the first time we bowled on it was, as a bowler, you look at the carry and how things carry, and it may be a little bit different. But when you go from one bowling center to another, there's often differences, and it has more to do sometimes with the sides. It has to do with the flat gutters. Before we went to string pins, we used twister pins, so you were going with a synthetic pin. So honestly, from a bowler standpoint, not a proprietor standpoint, I compare it to going, from synthetic to wood pins. You're going to have a little bit of difference in carry. Is one better than the other? I wouldn't really say they're a little bit different, but not necessarily better or worse.
So, what was your reasoning as a proprietor to move to string pins?
For us, it honestly came together pretty quickly. It was one where I think just curiosity to start with, because you start seeing these advertisements in different bowling magazines and stuff like that. And then for us, really the non-starter would have been if they had not been USBC sanctioned. Obviously, our leagues are
Mhm.
important to us. We host tournaments; those are important to us. So when USBC came out with their study, and we were actually able to go look and see the amount of research that they put into it and the things that they had done to make sure that the pins were going to act as close to freestanding pins as possible. That was kind of where we started looking at it a little more seriously. And for the folks that don't know, they did different lengths of strings to test these things. They went with a string that's actually about 10 inches longer than what was being used. And then they also deepened the pit area. And all those things gave it a more true feel for bowling. And so for us, um, the biggest issues we were having was just a number of breakdowns. We have a younger staff, especially at night. We're a fairly high volume bowling center. Getting technicians to work on them was getting harder and harder. I have a great mechanic, but he's only able to be in here so many hours a day. So in particular at night when we have the younger generation working on them, and you might take something that's a easy fix where we have a stop screw on a respot cell that needed adjustment, but instead we're adjusting a carb length. And pretty soon you have, one pin that's not being respotted. Now it won't respot anything. And we're having to move bowlers. And so from a proprietor standpoint, it was just getting to a point where uh, the satisfaction of our bowlers from the breakdown standpoint, I just wasn't satisfied with. And so we were looking at options, and um, didn't really necessarily think we were going to put string pins in this soon. But after bowling on them and just having the financials work and that kind of stuff, it was something we decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on. And we kind of got a first in the state deal from AMF. I'll be real honest with you. There's a lot of proprietors out there that are thinking about this, but just the not knowing what the reaction is going to be from the bowling community, I think there wasn't a lot that were really ready to take the risk quite yet. And in weighing our options, having gold on them, I thought we could kind of be pioneers in a way and kind of lead the way in this. And it's coming. I think it's a good product.
Yeah, change is always scary. You mentioned breakdowns. How does it differ? Because it's still a machine, is it not?
It is. I think just the simplicity of it,
Yeah.
and especially we were running AMF 8270s. Those got put in the 1980s for us, and they were used when we put them in. So, I mean,
Yeah.
when we were pulling them out, they were 1960s machines. So
Right.
we got some pretty good wear and tear out of them. But just the number of moving parts. And when you think about the things that can go wrong in a machine. So on an 8270, obviously a misspeed or a pin jam, as some places will call it, is going to be your most common probably trouble call. But then you don't have to worry about pin cups, pins being off spot, pins tripping, the respot cells picking up and setting down the pins after you throw the ball. All those things that can go wrong. Ball return issues. 95% of your ball returns are going to be pins in the exit, and you don't have those anymore. And then the smaller stuff. You think about the outer ranges, and you think about the deadwood. Having to call in a technician now or a counter help to go get deadwood out of the gutter after you shoot a 10 pin, and all those things kind of disappear with the string pins. About all we get is you'll get an occasional tangle. I don't have the literature on here, but it's like 99.5% of string tangles are actually fixed by the machine before the bowler even knows it. It's just that 0.5%. So I'd say on an average day, we're going back maybe 2 to 3 times a day for a string tangle. And that's about it from ours so far, and we're early on, and I realize that, but
Yeah.
the technology of the machine doesn't change. I think that's going to be pretty much the status quo going forward.
2 to 3 times is a lot less than what you would go back for pin jams or even deadwood.
Yeah.
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 Can you give us kind of a general idea of how it works? We all know how, A2s work and 8270s work and things like that. But how do the string pin, how does it function?
So the basic concept of it, you have the string that goes down through the top of the pin. There's a hole on the side where the string attaches, so you're able to actually feed it through. It's just a simple figure 8 knot to attach it to the machine. And there's a mechanism in there that has a roller on it that obviously rolls those up and down. So in between shots, what you'll see is all 10 pins are going to have the strings pulled up, and they'll go all the way up. If there's a pin that needs to be respotted, it'll drop back down. So after your first ball, the pins are actually kind of above the pin deck, if you will. The ball return is honestly probably my favorite part of it. One of the USBC requirements was a ball door. that opens and closes. So they put that in. But once it gets in that ball door, it actually just has a chain elevator lift. So there's no more belts that you have to trap it between the rails and worry about oil on the bowling balls or any of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It basically goes into a little platform and the chain lifts it up to the top and kind of dumps it onto the rails that take it down the down sweep and back up to the bowler. So that's honestly probably my favorite part of it is the ball return, just because over the years, how many times we had an old hard rubber ball that's soaked in oil that gets halfway up that ball lift and stops and comes back down and that kind of thing. So that's been almost my favorite part of it. But it's really kind of neat machinery. The other thing I'll just mention real quick is as the string goes out, when the pins are on the deck, people's perception or whatever, if they haven't seen it, is kind of that arcade style where they think it's going to
Yeah.
hit and then slap back or have tension. The resistance on the string as it's on the deck, they're completely slack. So that pin is allowed to freely move just like any other pin would be on a freestyle machine. So if you're shooting a 4-pin and you hit it, it's going to go straight back into the pit just like a normal pin would be. That's the expectation, and that's what it does. The only difference I would say that there is from a bowling standpoint that I've seen is outer ranges and how those are handled. So obviously with an outer range, if it's within a area for a respot cell on a normal freestanding machine to pick it up, it will, and it places it theoretically down wherever it laid. If it's in between, that's when you get the stop where you have the sweep come down and you have a stop where a technician's actually going to have to clear the pins and respot the sweep. On the string pins, if it's an outer range, it's going to treat it just like it does any other ball. The difference being it's going to go back to the point of origination. So if you left a 4-pin leave and it actually slid over almost to the 5-pin slot, it's actually going to go straight back to the 4-pin. From the bowling standpoint, that's honestly the only difference I see. For me, it's kind of a trade-off because you're changing the game slightly, but on the other hand, it's not even a stop anymore. And it's
Right.
really no different by USBC rule. If the machine were to knock it over, it goes back to that point of origination by rule
Right.
anyway. So for me as a bowler, it's kind of that trade-off. I'm kind of okay with it, honestly, when it reduces the number of stops and we can just move on with our game and not even have a stop.
Yeah, I don't have to pick up the 610 that's now this far apart instead of this far apart.
Yeah, yeah. And Josh Blanchard, many people watching this probably know Josh from his PBA
Sure.
tour and organizing events. And what he had told me was the number one complaint he got on the tour was pins being off spot. When you're trying to qualify and you're on a pair of lanes and you have a 3-pin off spot that's giving you a bad rack, and the guy you're trying to beat is on 7 and 8 and he's getting a perfect rack every time. With these string pin spotters, everything's on spot, whether it be spotting or respotting, it's going to be on spot every time. So there's definitely some advantage to that as far as the competitive fairness, if you will, which lane you're on or whatever, you're getting a good rack every time.
Very good. Now I know you're brand new into this. I mean, it's just started. Any high scores so far?
Let's see, we had a 299 Monday night, so we've had a couple honor scores already. Obviously over the summer our play is down.
Yeah.
you know, we have a scratch league that's got 15 teams of 3. It's a 6-10 cap, so we have some lower averages in there. Well, I think Monday night we had 5 or 6 700s, as high as 760. So yeah, I think the scores they're definitely scoreable. Um, we'll get a little further in. One of the things I did this year, typically we have a oil pattern change every year, and I try to keep it from the time my fall league start in September through the league season, and that way people can adjust to the shot. This year, I didn't make any changes. We're running out the exact same shot we ran last year. And the reason why is I really want to be able to compare the scores to see, in general, where are we at from the freestanding pins to the string pin, change to see where those averages are. But one of the things I told my league secretaries, we have an annual meeting in August, and they asked me about, how it was going with the string pins. And what I told them from a bowler standpoint is, in general, if they bowled well on them, they really like the string pins, and if they don't, then they don't like the string pins.
Yeah.
But I haven't had any complaints about the shot. Anybody that complains now, it's the string pins. So before it was the lane conditions or the bowling ball I drilled them. Now it just gives them kind of another layer of things to not take any accountability for their own bowling.
Well, you and I can sit here and talk forever about the positives about string pins, and you can say all you want, but there are still going to be those who are totally against it. So give me your elevator pitch to convince these bowlers that, you know what, this is really okay.
I think that the only thing you really can say to that is it's just got to be one where people go out and try it for themselves. You know, you can get on online and you can get on YouTube and you can watch videos from 2018 or 2019 on non-USBC sanctioned machines, and you can get an opinion based on that, or you can go out and try it for yourself and actually see what your ball does on them and how it carries. And I think for the people that do that, they walk away feeling pretty much okay with it. I had one bowler at the end of last year that said they weren't going to be back. My counter person at the time handled it really well. They said, you know what? When we get him in, you come in, I'll buy your first game on him, try him out. And, you know, he came in, he didn't actually even bowl on him the first time. He watched me bowl on him. He goes, okay, yeah, they're good enough. I'll be back. And so we haven't lost any league bowlers from it. I think like I said, in general, my league bowlers have been pretty open and receptive to it. Once they've tried it, they realize, you know what, the gameplay is really not any different. And the number of breakdowns, I haven't had to move a single group from a pair of lanes yet in league or tournament or anything because of a breakdown, which is fantastic. You know, we don't want those long breakdowns. We don't want to have to move bowlers. Nobody likes that.
That's good to hear. Well, Scott, I appreciate your time today and filling us in a little bit on what string bowling is all about down in Corvallis.
All right, glad to do it. Thanks for having me.
Scott Yarrow, he's the proprietor at Highland Bowl in Corvallis. Make sure you go check out his string pins. And Scott, I'm assuming you have open play, right?
We do, yeah.
All right. Come on, go on down.
Absolutely.
See him. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good night.